And welcome, everybody, to the 120th episode of the Fact Is Podcast. We're your hosts, Nate Moses and Ryan Mays. I'm not moving the mic. We are using the same mic tonight, unfortunately. We're going to be working on getting that setup corrected as we go with other guests. But without further ado, I do want to announce our official guest that we have on tonight, Steve. Cheers, my friend. Thank you for being on tonight. Appreciate you. So, cheers to you. Cheers. Thank you. Steve, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to let you kind of just introduce yourself, give us a little background about you, what you've done, things of that nature, and, we'd love to hear from you.
Having me on, Ryan. My name's Steve Harvey. I am father, husband, former Army aviator, Black Hawk pilot, current Politico in the last couple of years trying to boost voter integrity with election integrity in general within Arnold County greater area, some a little bit in Charlottesville. Currently sales work. Selling. Happy to hear to chat.
Yeah, so Ryan, if you want to touch up on the board there, Steve, thank you again for coming on, but I'm going to let Ryan talk about our board.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages, we have for you tonight, 1, leaked documents about the Pentagon. We're going to go in there. We found an article that kind of deep dives that, so we're going to check that out. 2, Chinese spies in New York. So make sure you tune in for that. The McCarthy debt bill. We're going to go into more detail on what exactly that is and what it encompasses. And then we got Jon Stewart versus the Department of Defense at number 4. And then we're going to wrap it all up with the election polls at number 5. So we've got an action-packed episode here for you this evening. Our first live guest in-house, which is going to be a lot of fun. With his political background, it's going to be really cool to get his perspective on just different current events that are happening. And very much so interested in number 5 here, election polls, especially with his movement and efforts to boost election integrity over the mountain. So, looking to get into this one. Here you go, Nave.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Ryan. So, yeah, like Ryan just said, we're going to obviously touch up on all these topics, and we're going to try to mostly save the majority of it for 5 election polls and discussing that again with his background. So, that is mostly going to be what we talk about there. But, Stuart, thank you for everything you're doing back there behind the scenes. Ryan, Steve, if y'all have anything else, y'all ready to jump right into it?
I do have one more thing I would like to add. Also, ladies and gents, if you haven't already, please like, comment, share, and follow us on all of our platforms. That's YouTube, Twitch, the Royal Rumble. We also are on Facebook as is our main platform, and then we also have a Patreon account. So if you we're feeling generous, that's where you could shower your love.
Shower your love. I love that. Oh, that's fantastic. All right, cool. Well, with all that being said, I say we just jump straight into it, gentlemen. Let's jump into the first one here. So we're going to talk about some leaked documents, of course, that came out on Discord, talking about the intelligence documents on Ukraine and Vladimir Putin and what we got going on there. So Newsweek has obtained more than 4 dozen of the leaked intelligence documents that were revealed 3 weeks ago and is publishing 20 of them here for the first time. The documents labeled secret and top secret offer important insight in the state of Ukraine war, even as NATO expands in response to Russian incursion and U.S. politicians debate the wisdom of necessity of supporting the war with financial and military aid. So the stark conclusion buried in the documents is that Vladimir Putin's army has made little progress since last July. It has gained an average of just 2.7 or 1.6 mile, 2.7 kilometers, 1.6 miles of territory per month, and its attack ground on Bakhmut. An equally startling disclosure is the number of Russian mercenaries fighting around Bakhmut exceeds the number of regular soldiers. According to the U.S. intelligence, 22,000 Wagner Group fighters constitute 70% of those fighting, thousands more than was previously known, and certainly a critical new variable. One document notes that the Russia has reacted to U.S. and NATO reconnaissance sorties. Several others report that supplies and support are heading to Ukraine ahead of Ukrainian offensive plan for April 30th. Thank you for starting up TikTok. Appreciate that. TikTok, what's going on?
We gotta have our TikTok fans.
Gotta have our 3,800 there. So most of the documents were classified top secret. The National Security Complex argues, as did the Pentagon, a top Pentagon spokesperson last week, that the disclosure present a very serious risk to national security. The FBI says that the documents are based on sensitive U.S. intelligence gathered through classified sources and methods. The alleged leaker Jack Teixeira, a 21-year-old member of the Air National Guard, was arrested Thursday and has been charged with 2 counts under the Espionage Act. The Bureau stated it is an affidavit in support of Teixeira's arrest that these images have already been posted on various public internet sites. In other words, the documents are already in public domain. They were on gaming servers as far back as January, and news media has written about them. Though no outlet has so far published them as a group, a senior defense source told Newsweek that Putin and the people around him have certainly seen the entire trove, filled with information which, if anything, is embarrassing to him and his military. The documents were prepared to the Joint Chief of Staff Intelligence Directorate and the Defense Intelligence Agency, and the daily briefings recount the latest intelligence. Most deal exclusively with the Ukraine war. Almost all were written from February 27th to March 1st and provide a fascinating snapshot of how U.S. intelligence sees the conflict. So U.S. intelligence is meticulously following the fight around Bakhmut, mapping Russian troops down to individual trenches and tracking every electronic squawk. From individual cell phones to radars, the Soda Straw view shows Bakhmut slowly falling into Russian hands. Its loss will be a psychological blow, but the town is not vital to the overall war, and the United States and its allies are looking to the future, busy building up Ukraine for the spring counteroffensive, and the documents say is slated to begin at the end of April. Now I'm going to keep going through this and see what other documents I can kind of come up with. The top secret documents are almost universally what the intelligence world calls derivative. That is made up of hundreds, if not thousands, of disparate pieces of information: signal intercepts, satellite and aerial reconnaissance pictures, reports from spies, diplomatic cables. Most of that high level of classification is based on the theory that their unauthorized disclosure could compromise intelligence sources and methods. So let's just talk about this real quick. Top secret information like this getting out obviously is a huge concern, regardless of who's getting leaked. Russia, Ukraine, US, and what their next strategic moves look like, which obviously right now looks like Bakhmut and with the battle going on there. So with these leaks, do you all foresee more leaks coming? Do you believe that there's going to be more in-depth, or how do you foresee this playing out?
Well, I'd be curious right off the bat. Which of these leaks are real leaks?
That's what I was just getting ready to say. It's like, are these just a smokescreen for what? I mean, the Pentagon and the military have such a history of throwing out 4 or 5 different stories, one of which may or may not be true, they could all be smokescreens, and then their real thing is like way over here. Our military and our government is so good at the Kansas City Shuffle that I don't necessarily believe any of these leaks. So, I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, we got the kid, or how old was he? 24?
23, I think. 21.
21-year-old guy that decides
going
that
to jail for the rest of his life.
Yeah, well, he's going to be the new Assange, and didn't end up being found his way straight to a jail cell. This sounds like it refutes half the stuff that his leak had in it, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they're barely gaining anything. The other one says they're gaining tons of land. They're not losing anybody. It's like, okay, this sounds an awful lot like damage control, honestly.
That's I agree with you 110%. That's why I believe that this is more smoke show. I don't know that any of this stuff is real. I just don't believe it.
Yeah, but then also, or was the first one the smoke show? And this is a real leak because somebody on the inside is like, hey, those are lies, and so I need to put out the truth. It feels less accurate, right?
It does. It
But-
feels yes.
But I wouldn't put it past them.
No, I wouldn't
mean,
put it past
they've
them.
been playing tricks with us for
At
70
least
years.
since the 50s.
yeah.
Probably even before
Oh,
that.
well,
let's,
before
let's
that.
be real.
I'll
but
say that Thomas Jefferson was claimed to be a hermaphrodite by Madison. So, like, it goes all the way to we're founded on this. That's what I think Americans need to pay attention to, particularly when it feels like the mountain of strife is avalanching upon you.
Right.
Well, no. It's a hailstorm, but America is built on hailstorms.
Yeah.
The whole mountain is just a pile of hail. So
I don't know if you know or not, but we got a lot of tornadoes out in the middle Midwest. I was getting ready to say Middle East. I don't know if that would have been
Middle East.
I don't think they get tornadoes over there. I think they're called.
I don't think so.
Sa-
Sandstorms.
Yeah.
So, interestingly enough, talking
It's actually
about
called rotor wash.
interestingly enough, talking about whether this is like smoking mirrors or not. So like right here, one of the top secret document discloses a case of Ukrainian sabotage. Status of the conflict was as of March 1st. So the document is a daily overview of the battlefield. The main combat is portrayed as centered around Bakhmut area, but with Ukraine continuing to slowly move eastward from Kherson into Luhansk, the southern demarcation. Oh man, I'm so bad with words. Demarcation. Thank you. Is mostly static, but firmly in control of Russia. Russian forces continued ground operations in Donetsk and were establishing a defense in depth between Kherson and Zaporizhzhia.
Zaporizhzhia.
That one. The document says in the paragraph marked top secret, help me.
Demarcating.
Thank you. Demarcating the positioning of the Russia's four groupings of troops: central, western, southern, and eastern. High explosive events over the past 24 hours and recorded from Kherson in the west through the western front to Kupiansk in the northeast of the front. So the document also reports a Ukrainian sabotage operation in Belarus where Ukrainian agents evidently violated orders and attacked a Russian airborne early warning airplane on the ground with a small drone. Though Ukrainian sabotage inside Belarus and Ukraine is known to occur, it is a unique piece of information. But again, piece of information that could potentially be false.
Yeah, but, I mean, look at that document. Look at that. That looks like they got that off Google Maps. I definitely am more of the belief that this is definitely fake. That looks like a Google document. I mean, is the DoD using Google Docs? Google Maps right here on the DoD.
Yeah, I highly doubt that.
I don't know, with the shading and that sort of yellow coloration, it looks like something from World of Warcraft.
Age of Empires. The document is the same daily overview of the battlefield, one day earlier than document number 1 and nearly identical. There is no change on the battlefield, though an accounting of high explosive events portrayed in document 1 is missing. So a Russian Kilo-class diesel-powered attack submarine is reported as having departed from the Crimean base. Russian and Ukrainian forces are recorded as suffering between 35,500 to 43,000 killed in action, 500 less than the next day. Interesting. Ukraine is assessed as 15,500 to 17,500 killed in action, a similar difference of 500. This is not to suggest the additional 500 troops died in one day, but merely that the DIA's methodology and assessment changes from day to day. See document number 1, and how that went. So yeah, I mean, this is just really interesting because these are all the leaked files, Stu. If you just want to kind of keep going through, deploy the Kraken. So the document reports on February 28th, order from chairman of the Ukrainian Main Intelligence Directorate, Kyrylo Budanov, to deploy the elite Kraken unit to Bakhmut to stabilize catastrophic situation. Ukrainian moral in Bakhmut is assessed as low. The second element of the document reports on a supposed attempt by the Russian chief of the general staff and the head of the Russian National Security Council is undermining Vladimir Putin. So a campaign of attrition in Donbass, just multiple documents that apparently got leaked. But again, how can we even, give the validity of these documents? There is no way to really prove as to how real these could be.
Well, we can just go on Chat GPT. It'll tell us.
Oh yeah, I mean ChatGPT tells us everything.
5.
What are they up to now? I think it's like 4.0. I think they're trying to release a new one, 4.0. I was listening to Lex Friedman talk about that on, I think it was Rogan's latest episode, talking about ChatGPT and where they were at with that. But yeah, I mean, there's just a series of documents that keep coming out here. What the OPIR shows, collecting traffic data, IDing Ukrainian units, outnumbered. I mean, it's just on and on and on. So I will definitely make sure we share this to the chat so you all can take a look at it for yourselves, because it is a very, very big article. So we're not going to be able to touch up on all of this, but we'll kind of go through, and it kind of gives you all the documents, the titles of them, where they're at. Russian reacts to reconnaissance flights, monitoring Chinese missiles, diminishing political will in Europe, Ukraine's plans, readying for spring counteroffensive. I mean, just so much stuff along this line. So yeah, like you all said, it's tough to tell.
I think some here, all of this, maybe it's not true, maybe half true, but there's definitely millions of people that are suffering.
That is a fact.
That is very least. There's a lot of people.
Right.
Talk to your local representative. I mean, I think more transparency might be appropriate now that we have leaks in every direction.
Right.
Maybe the commander in chief up on the podium, what the truth is at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be happy with just forming sentences, but
Let's not ask.
What I'm interested in.
Let's not ask for too much.
What I'm interested in is how this guy got these documents. And he just took pictures of them.
Yeah.
it looks
were
like
on
they
the
were
wall.
folded in his pocket. He unfolded them and then started snapshotting.
Yeah.
The reason I think they're real is because how the U.S. is kind of freaking out and they went after him. And now they're trying to say, oh, these documents, they should not be leaked. It's national security and all this stuff. That's how I think they're real, because they're freaking out.
But if they didn't do that, then that would lead to all kinds of other questions. I mean, it's their job to freak out when something like this happens, isn't it?
Yeah, because if they didn't freak out, then that would make it look like it's more fake than ever, unfortunately. Because, they're going to have to try to pin this on somebody, or if they don't, then again, they're just going to be like, well, wait, so somebody just leaked all of these top secret documents and nobody's going after him? Like, nobody's trying to get to the bottom of it? That would look sketchier than if they were to go and arrest and,
then they would just say they're fake. They're not real.
Yeah, I guess you could do something of that nature, but I don't know. Again, you have so many different angles and ways of looking at it. The public can just kind of come up with their own conclusion off their own basis, and that's kind of maybe where they're sitting with it. But yeah, I don't know necessarily all of it behind it.
You think they're going to put this dude away for fake documents?
They could definitely
Yeah.
act like they could.
Oh no, I definitely think they would. I mean, I don't know. It's unfortunately, kid, you just went down. Sorry. Thank you for your service. I mean, but seriously, I mean, who's to say that this kid didn't sign up for it? As I'm going to do this service for the country because this is going to then promote, further security measures down the road, that they're going to be able to pass legislation based off of this. I mean, the Restrict Act is already there, and this dropped on a social media. So who's to say that, this kid isn't just a diehard, like, fully bought in person who is willing to just go down on the spear?
Yeah. Great point.
So I know a lot of other people who have been radicalized and do things that are, I mean, just as crazy.
A lot of people have been radicalized?
No, I don't know a lot of people that, I mean, I'm saying, like, I know that a lot of people have been radicalized. And I mean, you think, how old were the people who hijacked planes and ran those into the 9/11, in the towers?
That's
like,
also true.
So if somebody is turned to a cause and they're strong enough and their belief is strong enough, people are willing to go to any end to make sure that goes through.
Yeah, on top of that, I mean, what's to say that, he just doesn't change his name and, that individual's locked up, but yeah. And, go from there. But yeah, I mean, there's many different potential possibilities this could be. And it's hard to sit here and fret over which one it's going to, so right now we just have to take it on its word and believe that the validity of these documents is real and that this gentleman is going to be going to prison for it. So
how do you guys feel about U.S. boots on the ground in Ukraine?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's inevitable, but I don't think it should happen.
These documents, that's what it's saying.
It's saying that it's going to happen. Yeah, like with a spring counteroffensive. But I don't think it should happen. But unfortunately, that's for individuals who are in a position that I am not to make those decisions. Not saying whether we agree or not, but I mean, obviously, I don't think. Would you agree with that, Steve?
I think it sets us up for a really nice chance for Americans to look in the mirror before the next presidential election.
That's a good point too.
And decide, is this what would have happened if the last one went differently?
Right.
And if this isn't what would have, what would you have heard? Like, are you glad that this is happening?
Right.
Maybe somebody that says specifically this would never happen because I'm going to take a hard stand and it's not going to be stepped on.
Right.
Because I position myself as a strong person rather than as somebody who may or may not be financially interested in other things.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's very troubling.
It is the whole thing in general. So, let's go ahead. We'll wrap that one up. Just sticking with the gentleman's going to prison. He's 21 years old, and he leaked those documents, and like you said, he was trying to be the latest Assange. Unfortunately, I don't think he has as much backup as he wanted.
Yeah.
Not as many people are excited about this one.
Get out of the country quick
No, he
I
didn't.
hope he has a giant dead man
Yeah.
because they might end up Jeffrey.
Oh, goodness. Sorry, bud. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about this is probably one of the most wild stories I've ever heard. U.S. arrests 2 for setting up Chinese secret police station in New York. Funny part is, if I'm not mistaken, this secret Chinese police station was only 2 blocks away from the precinct. So let's read through this. U.S. federal agents arrested 2 New York residents for allegedly operating a Chinese secret police station in the Chinatown district of Manhattan on Monday in what prosecutors said was part of a crackdown on Beijing's alleged targeting of dissidents. Lu Jingwang, 61, and Chen Jinping, 59, face charges of conspiring to act as agents of China's government without informing U.S. authorities and obstruction of justice. They were released on bond following an initial appearance in Brooklyn federal court. I mean, they'll probably just go straight back to China. A 2022 investigation published by Spain-based advocacy group Safeguard Defenders reported that China had set up overseas service stations, including in New York, that illegally worked with Chinese police to pressure fugitives to return to China. The China government has said there are centers outside of China run by local volunteers, not Chinese police officers, that aim to help Chinese citizens renew documents and offer other services. The Department of Justice has been ramping up probes.
Documents.
Yeah.
Renew documents.
The Department of Justice has been ramping up probes into what it calls transnational repression by U.S. adversaries such as China and Iran to intimidate political opponents living in the United States. We cannot and will not tolerate the Chinese government's persecution of pro-democracy activists who have sought refuge in this country. Breon Peace, the top federal prosecutor in Brooklyn, told reporters. Prosecutors on Monday unveiled charges against 34 Chinese officials for allegedly operating a troll farm and harassing dissidents online, including by disrupting their meeting on U.S. technology platforms. They also added 8 Chinese government officials as defendants in a case announced in 2020 charging a former China-based executive of Zoom Video Communications, or Zoom, with disrupting video meetings commemorating the 1989 Tiananmen Square protest, if you all remember that.
Have you guys seen can we interject?
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
please. No,
Yeah,
please.
Have you guys seen The Americans?
The Americans. I can't say I have.
It's a series.
I've seen the series, but I've
That's
never
what
watched it. Yeah.
Oh, you know of the series?
like
but
I
you didn't
know
watch
of it. Yeah.
It's a great series. It's about two Russian spies that are deeply, deeply embedded in the United States, and like it follows their lives, how crazy everything is, how they
Right.
find sources and everything else. And I'm just hearing this story and thinking the whole time, how easy would it be to have just thousands of those
Right.
now? It would have been a lot harder in the 80s when there were like the FBI was actually looking for those people and like it was dangerous for them. It's not dangerous. They're not looking. I
Not
know
now.
plenty of people at the University of Virginia. I know two people at the University of Virginia who say that since the 80s, there have been just whole cohorts of professors and students coming through the university sending data back to China.
Wow.
Just directly sending it, like tons and tons, and there'll be like one leak every once in a while, some
Yeah.
documents. It's happening constantly. It's not occasionally, oh, that one guy got caught. No. It's like dozens of professors, hundreds of students.
Oh my goodness.
And it's at every single university that is allowing, international funding, and which is almost every single university.
yeah.
So, like that they caught a police station, okay. It's a start, like that
Right.
you were even looking. I'm surprised you were even looking because you're not looking for all the other stuff. That one of these professors that came to me when I was running and donated my campaign and everything. I ran for local office in 2019 for Board of Supervisors, which is nothing to do with international affairs or anything like that.
Right.
But this guy was massively politically invested, and he thought that I was like a genuine person and wanted to tell me everything in his entire life. So I still get an email from him every single day. And he was a professor at UVA, he was a professor at UNC. He said at both of those universities, it was pervasive. It was everywhere, it was constantly, and he would report it, and there was never any response on any of it. There's no interest in stopping this from happening. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's just cultural, a fear of xenophobia or something like that.
Right.
But he said there was absolutely no response. He reached out to the FBI, the CIA, to everybody that would
Wow.
be interested in this, and there would just be dead silence on the other.
That's
And
wow.
it's terrible. Like I don't know how the couple that get caught because no one's interested.
Right. It was saying something about if I'm not mistaken, let me go back to the department ramping up probes into what it calls transnational repression. But there was something that had kind of warned us. A Spain-based advocacy group called Safeguard Defenders reported that China had set up overseas service stations. So I guess that's really what kind of kickstarted it. And then they were like, oh, we should probably stop this, especially if there's reports from these guys that there's one in New York, and lo and behold, there's one in New York. So I'd imagine seeing that article kind of drop, or the investigation drop, was pretty eye-opening for them.
Ryan, when you hear renewing paperwork, what do you think that is subtext for?
Renewing visas, renewing, different scholarships, and I that's Steve, renewing. What did they say? Paperwork. Yeah, paperwork is a very broad summary of what it all could be.
Makes me think of an oath that they maybe take when they come to the United States, and they're like, we need to make sure these people are renewing their oath
Yeah.
to do everything they can for the, what do they call it? It's not fatherland. What do they call China? The homeland, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Back home.
Yeah, back home. The farm.
The farm. Back home.
Yeah, the CCP.
Or I was gonna say forgotten country,
For
but
Asgard.
yeah,
It
for
sounded like that's
for
what you were
Asgard. Yeah, I mean, and if I'm not mistaken, doesn't China aren't they pretty strict about that? Like, you have to be pretty loyal to the CCP.
Oh yeah, you need to have a really high credit score in order to social credit score. What do they call it in China? Is it just credit score?
Probably.
Well, whatever it is, you got to be like maxed out in order to get the scholarship and be allowed to leave. So they're definitely taking oaths.
Right.
They're
Oh, yeah.
definitely taking oaths. before they leave. And this refreshing
make
paperwork means reminding
Refreshing you of
hey,
your oath.
I saw that thing you posted on TikTok about loving America. You need to come in and refresh your paperwork right away. And then, maybe if they come back out, they're fully trained again.
Sounds like some MK Ultra stuff right there.
No,
Yeah.
it's just a switch is what it takes.
Take this LSD.
Yeah, I was gonna say that is pretty concerning, and just to kind of touch up on the last bit of this, the FBI director Christopher Wray told a U.S. Senate committee in November that he's very concerned. Was very concerned about the presence of such stations in the U.S. cities. Prosecutors previously charged more than a dozen Chinese nationals and others with waging surveillance and harassment campaigns against dissidents living in the United States, including by trying to forcibly, gosh, I'm horrible with words. What is that word right there? Repatriate. Thank you. People whom China considered fugitives. So that right there, I mean,
I think Steve.
yeah.
Patriot?
Yeah, I mean, bring
yeah,
them in
bring
and
'em
make
in.
sure that they're still loyal to
They'll
us.
re-interview them. They'll
Yeah.
interview them. You're being interviewed to decide whether you get to stay in America. I bet that's how the conversation starts. And then they go, here are your social media posts. Explain these to us, please.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I was trying to get in with this group of, okay, and this one, and this one, and this one. I bet that it's terrifying.
I
I
bet
can't
it is.
imagine getting one of those letters because they know where their people are, and they probably scoop them up if they don't show up for their appointment.
And
They're a lot better than our immigration system.
who was it during the World Cup? I believe it was those in Iran. Or those in Iran who didn't sing the country's national anthem. Was that it? And they basically threatened their families and said, "You will sing our country's national anthem on your next game." And guess what they did? They sang that anthem that next game.
Canary, I bet.
And it's funny because this article had mentioned how both Iran and China had set up these. So that is a very scary thing to think about for those individuals who come from those countries seeking freedom and are still being trapped by their country, even when they're here in the U.S.
You're giving these people some pretty solid intentions, but I'll take your point.
Yeah, fair. Okay, fair enough.
I mean, they did agree to the contract to begin with.
I'd
right?
imagine, yeah. But then when you get over here, it's like, this is kind of incredible. And then it's like, oh, crap. I got to remember who I'm really working for.
They get over here and they're like, wait a minute, there's not deadly drones just flying around everywhere?
That's only in other countries.
Huh. There's not these drone dog things walking around with loudspeakers duct taped to their backs?
I don't know. I saw some of those
Did you
little
see that?
drones delivering food over at JMU.
Yeah.
Oh, those little robot things. Yeah.
Everybody thinks they're so cute, but
Until they
I
have
don't know.
guns. But did you see that in China? Like for the COVID lockdowns, they had those like
Yeah,
robot
with the
dogs.
loudspeaker
Yeah,
on
with the
the
loud.
front.
It was literally like duct taped on there.
Get into your house.
Go home. Do not come out.
Freedom
Zero
is for
COVID
Nazis.
Freedom is for people across the sea. Is that too far?
No.
Here, take this away from me.
Take this away from me. Unfortunately, it wasn't too far. It's kind of factual, but yeah. So a scary thing to think about there with New York, because if it's happening in New York, I can't imagine that it's not happening in other cities that have like a massive foreign population there. So definitely something to keep an eye out of. And perhaps refugee friendly or refugee
Refugee city.
refugee cities. I wouldn't what were they called though?
Sanctuaries.
Sanctuaries. Thank you. Sanctuaries. Things of that nature. So definitely something to keep an eye out for, and I think that the U.S. government should start definitely paying a little more attention to. So a good call there. Glad we caught these guys, and more to come with that. We'll see if we can find any more of these secret police stations. But moving forward, real quick, just want to interject and tell everybody again, if you haven't yet, please make sure you like, comment, share, and follow. Subscribe, of course, to any of you on YouTube, Twitch, any of the other platforms. But thank you for everybody who is here tonight. Looks like we have a pretty big viewership, so anybody who wants to feel free to comment. That's what this platform is for. We like to allow you all to talk live. If you have any questions for Steve, Ryan, myself, or Stuart, feel free and just drop your comments in here and tell us what you think. So without further ado, let's move on to article number 3. We're going to talk about Speaker McCarthy and how he vows to pass the debt bill. But can he do it is the question. So House Speaker Kevin McCarthy pledged Monday to pass legislation to raise the nation's debt ceiling, but only on condition of capping future federal spending increases at 1%, as he lashed out at President Joe Biden for refusing to engage in budget-cutting negotiations to prevent debt crisis. In a high-profile speech at the New York Stock Exchange, McCarthy, the Republican leader who was marking his 100th day as Speaker, said the nation's debt load is a ticking time bomb, which is true, and Biden is missing in action as the deadline nears to raise the debt limit. But McCarthy's own ability to bring his plan to passage as promised is highly uncertain. Late Monday, House Republicans rallied around the Speaker as he returned to the Capitol Hill, with preparations underway to vote on a package as soon as next week. A rapid turnaround. McCarthy is expected to brief House Republicans privately early Tuesday morning on the details, even though the Republican plans chances in the Democratic-controlled Senate are dismal. House approval could serve as a calling card pressuring Biden to negotiate. Since the president continues to hide, House Republicans will take action, McCarthy vowed. So pretty big statement there from McCarthy, I'd say. The White House hit back quickly, accusing McCarthy of dangerous economic hostage-taking, and administration officials re-upped Biden's pressure on the Republican leader to prove a debt ceiling increase with no strings attached. McCarthy's Wall Street address came with the Washington heading toward a potential financial crisis over the need to raise the nation's debt limit, now at $31 trillion, and avert a federal default. Goodness, I didn't realize it was up to $31 trillion. The Treasury Department has said it is taking extraordinary measures to continue paying its bills, but money will run short this summer. While vowing to defaulting on our debt is not an option, McCarthy faces his own challenges pushing a legislative fix to passage. So just kind of looking through all this, McCarthy's plan, the plan he outlined would raise the nation's debt limit into next year, putting the issue squarely into the 2024 presidential election, coupling it with a plan to roll back federal spending to fiscal 2022 levels, recoup unspent COVID-19 funds, and cap future spending at no more than 1% a year over the next decade. Republicans, he said, also want to attach policy priorities, including imposing work requirements to recipients of government aid that would result in cuts to benefit programs and the federal safety net for poorer Americans. And just kind of skipping through, going down towards the end of this article, the nation runs more than $1 trillion in annual deficits, and the last time the federal budget balance was 2001. Wow. McCarthy noted the President Ronald Reagan similarly warned of government spending. The cuts the House Republicans want to make are not draconian, McCarthy said. He pledged not to touch the Medicare and Social Security programs important to older Americans that other Republicans wanted to cut, which is actually a very interesting negotiation considering. And then once his speech was interrupted by applause from the executives and others at the stock exchange, the White House and Democrats in Congress have been unwilling to engage in talks with Republicans, saying Congress must simply raise the debt limit without conditions. See that? As the Speaker delivered his speech, his hard-charging Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan was convening a New York City field hearing focused partly on District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who indicted Trump on campaign finance and other charges related to alleged hush money payments to adult film Stormy Daniels and Playboy model who contend he had sexual relations with them. So, blah, 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 whatever. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It sounds to me like McCarthy is really actually trying to negotiate and get our debt down. I mean, especially when you're talking about not touching Medicare or Social Security. Though, I mean, I would be a fan of potentially cutting those budgets, and I wouldn't consider myself really right or left, but just looking at the amount we pour into it and the amount that we're getting taken away from, out of our paychecks, is drastic. It's a lot of money. For anybody who doesn't pay attention to how much of your taxes get taken out every paycheck, please go pay attention to that because it's big.
Well, one of the things I would say is, or I guess a question more than a statement, does Medicare solve itself over the next 10 to 20 years? Because the boomer population is beginning to pass away.
Right.
So the large number of people that are receiving Medicare benefits is about to go down pretty dramatically.
Right.
And I would expect that to probably be within the next 5 to 15, realistically
Right.
speaking. So leaving that alone right now, I think is actually a pretty good move for McCarthy if he is trying to bring Democrats to the table. However, their hard stance of, oh, you just need to raise the debt ceiling without any stipulations, that's kind of bullcrap.
I agree.
That is kind of bullcrap. Like, oh, if I am a consumer and I have credit cards and I go to my credit card company and I say, you need to raise my credit limit. And they're going to look at my spending habits over the last, however long I've held the card. And they're going to say, oh, well, you haven't had a balance sheet since 2001. Do you think that they're going to raise my credit limit? Probably not. Or maybe they do because they want to put me further into debt and they know I'm irresponsible. So I don't know. I think if you're just an everyday ordinary citizen and you're trying to get away with what the U.S. government is trying to get away with right now and just perpetually raising the debt ceiling, it just doesn't happen for normal people. So why is it that the people who we've entrusted to be, the voice of the people, the representatives that we've entrusted to be the voice of the people, are just continually allowing this to happen without taking a hard look at what our budget and our deficits are and trying to come up with a viable solution that reduces those?
So, if you didn't see, Manny has come in. Manny, appreciate you jumping in here tonight. So Manny came in with 2 comments. No, it does not solve itself. Remember, our replacement rate is down. Replacement rate meaning birth rate, right? Which our birth rates are going down actually pretty scarcely.
I think we're at 1 point. Right now?
Yeah, which is kind of concerning because we don't, and that's just the point, I guess, right, Manny? Because we don't have enough people to be able to keep replacing individuals to put up money for Social Security and for Medicare and things of that nature. We're not going to have enough tax-paying citizens to be able to keep up with that. So one of the, and that's why I can't stress enough is financial I guess literacy, right? Like being able to understand how to save, how to invest, how to create a retirement for yourself is more crucial than ever because we will not have Social Security to fall back on. I truly believe that, especially our generation.
Not unless some major changes. Not unless some major changes are happening within the next 5 years, I would say.
Yeah. So,
what do you think, Steve?
Well, they might still give you your $2,000 a month, but it'll be worth couple hundred bucks
At the current rate of inflation, it will be worth pennies.
Exactly. But I wanted to pull up a chart that, along with the government's having trouble funding itself, take a look at this beauty right here. Isn't that a weird looking chart? Weird how through all the recorded history on there, what's going on right at the end?
Going up and then it sinks.
What is that going on at the end there? This is all commercial banks, the deposits banks. Dropping for like the first time. Anybody else concerned about this? So I hear the government's having trouble funding itself. And then I look up a chart like that because I wonder how the people, the people that support the government, how are the people doing? Well, the people are having a little bit of trouble keeping money in their bank accounts too.
So
there's a bigger problem going on here, and it could be the trillions of dollars we printed, the quantitative easing that has inflated the money supply through the roof. But if the money supply is inflated through the roof, that number shouldn't be going down.
Right.
So there's a systemic, powerful issue, deep like macroeconomics here that is not getting solved by the Fed.
Yeah, and Manny's asking, what is the chart of? Can't read it. So the chart is, Stuart, if you could, can you actually, zoom in or make it bigger? There you go. So it's deposits into all commercial banks, I'm assuming across the United States. Now, another big thing that, and I saw this commercial yesterday when I was watching the NBA playoffs. Did y'all see how Coinbase is actually starting, like cryptocurrency is starting to try to fight the banks? They are trying to get you to pull your money out of banks and start using crypto as your main, like Coinbase specifically, to put your money there. That's what they're working on doing now to get away from banks.
And that news just came out?
Well, no, of course not. But
well, I just saw Bitcoin drop 1,200 today.
Did it drop 1,200 today?
The cryptocurrencies decided to fight the banks, and then Bitcoin drops 1,200.
Interesting, isn't it?
Like,
well, now
that's not a battle I really want Bitcoin to take on. I think that
I will say though that was the first commercial I've ever seen where Coinbase was
Like
talking about actively attacking, because they were talking about like putting your money in there and it's not safe, and things of that nature, especially with what happened over in California not too long ago. And they were talking about that, and they just kind of attacked it. Like I'll try to find the commercial because it was very interesting to watch last night. But yeah, so that's also an interesting thing. So 2 questions, I guess. Number 1 is this: what do you believe the decrease in this is for? And then number 2, do you believe that Bitcoin or coin, online cryptocurrency, e-currency has a play into this as well?
I think if I was defending the regime, I would say, well, if you just continue that chart from pre-COVID, pre-government shutdowns, it looks like it would just line up kind of nicely with where it's dropped to. But we don't know where that chart is going to end up. I don't know. Ryan's kind of a financial whiz. I was kind of hoping for his perspective.
What I was going to say is that spike that you see there is in 2020. Am I correct?
Yep.
I can't see that.
Yes.
So that is probably what the stimulus checks were. Just based on what I'm seeing here with all the PP loans and all that stuff. I would think that the downturn at the top is the Fed trying to pull money out of circulation. That would be my first guess, like just uneducated, first time seeing this chart, is that the Fed is trying to get inflation under control. So the only way that they can do that is to pull money out of circulation, raise rates, and do things like that to reduce the supply. That would make sense to me, because if you do look at the normal trajectory, there was a massive spike in 2020, and obviously that was brought on by stimulus checks and everything else. And then with it starting to correct itself, that might be just an indicator that the Fed is doing what it's supposed to be doing to try to get the currency under control.
Maybe. All I'm seeing though is revolutionary, like that's a revolutionary curve.
He's ready to throw tea into the harbor, guys.
You see this, and then you see bonk, donk, about like consistency for 40 years or whatever, and then all of a sudden madness. And I go, well, chaos and economics do not necessarily go very well together.
They don't go very well together. But the chaos that you're seeing, though, is definitely brought on by COVID. So, I mean...
Doesn't it feel like there's so many more fingers manipulating the pie now, though? It just feels like there was consistency with the market. We had expected rules, expectations for the whole system. And now there's so many more people involved in forcing decisions. We're going to put money in. We're going to take money out. We're going to decrease that, make sure these people don't work there, send these jobs here. Like, it's getting more and more controlled.
That's what happens when you print, what is it, $8.4 trillion in 2 years?
Yeah.
You create a ton of chaos. You create a very volatile market for money. I mean, if I was going to call the last 3 years anything, I would just call them volatile. Volatile is all get out. Because there is no predictability anymore. Like you said, there's been 40 years of stable growth, and now out of nowhere, just So I don't know. Like I said, I haven't seen that chart before. I haven't taken a look at it. I haven't really educated myself on that. but just first time glance, I would think that maybe that downturn that you're seeing is the Fed pulling currency out of circulation.
So hate to cut y'all off, but I actually do have that Coinbase ad I want to show y'all, and it's called "It's Time to Update the System." So Stu, go ahead and run that ad real quick. If you want, Steve, go ahead and mute your mic, and we'll be able to hear it through mine.
What is this archaic system?
Mother's maiden name? Leibowitz?
You're telling me this guy is how things get verified.
That's my job.
I'm just saying, you shouldn't have to buy $10 worth of gum if you just want 79 cents worth of gum. Why do you get charged your money to take your money from your account? And if you're out of money, they charge you for being out of money?
What?
An overseas transfer takes 5 days?
Business days.
Why?
What are they using? A Zeppelin?
I deposited the check Monday.
But Monday was a bank holiday.
Why is this the way it is?
A bank holiday?
This system
What's a bank holiday?
makes no sense.
This makes no sense.
Who designed this system? Is this really the best we can do?
Hello?
Don't we deserve better?
So there's that.
First reaction, what an awesome ad.
Thank you.
What an
Right?
amazing ad.
I
That
was-
was well choreographed, well timed, funny, relatable. Everybody could relate to that.
Yeah.
I don't like that they pointed at George Washington when they said, "Who made this system?" They didn't have fiat currency when George Washington.
Yeah, George Washington had nothing to do with that.
Absolutely. What was the source of this terrible idea? George
1913.
Washington.
1913 was the source of this corrupt system that we have right
Now
now.
wait a minute. What happened in 1913?
The Federal Reserve was put into play.
What else happened in 1913?
Give me a history lesson here, Nave.
World War One.
Did it start on 1913?
13 ended in 17, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh.
I was gonna ask about a visit some island.
That's a little too current. Maybe 2013.
Wasn't there,
Bill Clinton.
wasn't there a different island back then, though?
I don't know.
I apologize. So technically, World War One started in 14, but that's interesting how it started right before a world war.
Yeah, so I mean, the Federal Reserve was instituted in 1913, and then so I think taxes were also introduced a few years later, because I don't think we had a tax system since
We
Andrew
definitely
Jackson.
had taxes. We did not have income taxes.
Income taxes, is that what it was?
Ah,
there
yes.
there was property tax and things like that, but income tax wasn't
It
a
was
thing.
the day we all
And I
became.
think sales tax wasn't a thing back then either, was it?
Oh, we probably had sales tax.
I know
back
there was
then.
stamp tax. That was a big deal.
It was, but we all became wage slaves.
Mm-hmm.
That was when a portion of your labor all became taxable. It was not. I mean, Jefferson. All the founding fathers would have been horrified by this concept.
Oh yeah.
Like absolutely, this is tyranny manifest, and in a dripping, slow way.
Yeah.
You don't notice so much that money coming out because they're taking it out drips and drabs
Right.
throughout your entire year. That was the whole point.
Now, Stewart pulled up, so it was passed by Congress in July 2nd of 1909 and ratified in February 3rd of 1913. So, good. You gave me a history lesson. So yeah,
And mine was accurate. Nate.
Yeah, yours was accurate. So I could have sworn it was 13. Yeah, well. So yeah, that's pretty interesting to see that the Federal Reserve was set up. Wow, the 1913. Really, when you think about it, it's not that old in the sense of like the country itself.
10 years old.
Yeah, it's only about the
Halfway point,
almost
almost.
half point of our life. Yeah, our country's life. So that's pretty interesting to see there. So yeah. Anyways, the Coinbase ad, I thought that was really interesting because they're starting to attack the Federal Reserve. They're starting to attack banks. They're starting to try to get you to go to e-currencies. Could have a potential with that chart and what's happening there with the banks. McCarthy's trying to get our debt down. Democrats aren't budging, even with the talks of not even touching Social Security or Medicare. So, it just goes to show it's like they will not negotiate at all. And that's frustrating. And again, I'm not a left or right person, but it really seems to me that Democrats just don't want to negotiate. And that's not even like me. That's just like a factual statement.
You don't negotiate from a this position of power. Like, they have the presidency, they have the media. Their messaging will win, absolutely. Them saying you're about to lose your protection, we're about to defund all these things you rely on.
Right.
That's going to be all the messaging that gets out from the mainstream media. So people that are sort of fighting back, hey, you're going to cause some future harm that's really nebulous about banks and this and that. That's so much weaker than their constant demand for satisfying personal needs and everything
Right.
else that they're doing.
Yeah, and because, like, don't get me wrong, I'm the kind of guy who will sit here and call out the right and the conservatives just as much as anybody else. But when you're sitting there and McCarthy is truly trying not to touch like two of the biggest topics that Democrats never want to touch, and he's trying to come to the table and make terms, and they won't even talk to him, that's ridiculous. That's a sign of just like absolute. Like, absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? They, like you just said, they have a power position, so why give it up? Why even try to act like they can meet them at the table if they don't have to?
Well, they know they'll come back to the table. McCarthy will come back to the table over and over again. He wants to do his job. He probably wants to do it really well.
Right.
I've never met him. I don't know, but I would assume so.
Just
He
like
made it
any
all the
other
way
person.
there. His whole legacy relies on him doing a good job now.
Right.
And they're all going to say he's not doing his job and he's doing a terrible job and everything else. And so he'll keep coming back to the table because line to do so.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, what do we know of McCarthy so far? He's a negotiator. I mean, even just to become the Speaker of the House, he had to negotiate over and over and over and over and over
How
again.
many votes was that? I don't remember. It was almost a record, right?
Oh,
There was one more. That
was a
like
lot.
back in the early 19.
Yeah, I mean, it was insane to watch that happen. I mean, I was sitting here and I was watching the TV. I was like, oh my gosh, we're witnessing history. This is kind of cool, in a weird way. But I don't know, man. Like both of you have said, I mean, from a power position, you don't really negotiate. I mean, it's kind of like you make your demands and then you sit on your demands until they're met. However, with the pendulum swinging the way that it is in current society, it's going to only be a matter of time before that pendulum swings the other way. Like it's already down. It's on the down slope from the left to the right, so to speak. And so eventually that pendulum is going to be back on the right. And then what happens? But I don't know. I can't really formulate what I'm trying to say here. But Republicans do seem to be less like standoffish when it comes to things like this. They try to kind of meet in the middle somewhere they can. Whereas Democrats do seem to be kind of steadfast, like, no, you're going to come and to our side to play ball. So, I mean, maybe they know that. Maybe they say, you know, even if it does swing your way, we still know you're going to negotiate. So, no, you give us what we want.
Yeah, both parties are terrible on spending.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Like, are really, really bad. It'll be like Democrats. Oh, we'll
We'll only meet you at where you asked, not a dollar more.
It's a little bit below where you were at. Like, that's follow.
I love it, Steve. Thank you.
The subliminal.
All right.
So anyway, one thing I do want to bring up is aliens. No, I'm just kidding.
We need a UFO.
So aliens, like a cool little floating UFO to have on the tape. Doesn't Tim Cass have that? Didn't we just talk about that? Yeah. All right, cool. So, good topic of conversation there.
Crossland would never see it.
Dude.
We will definitely keep up with McCarthy in that bill he's trying to get passed. Of course, trying to attack the debt, the debt in our country right now. So we will keep on top of that. Anything else comes out of that, of course, week by week, every episode, we'll touch up on that. Let's go ahead and move forward though, because we want to save our best for last, which is going to be after this video, the latest election polls, and we'll dive more into that. But real quick, let's talk about Jon Stewart and his questioning of the Defense Deputy Secretary on budget. So real quick, we're going to go ahead and mute our mics again, and we're going to play this video.
Do you feel like these are unfair questions of somebody within a department of that size and scope?
I
Do you
think
feel
you-
that
I
that
think
it's that
you're-
it's somewhat
I think you
unfair?
have a particular thing you really want to talk about, and you're asking me other questions. But I don't think it's unfair to ask me about the audit. It's absolutely the case that the United
Right.
States military should be able to pass an audit, and we've got to be on that pathway to get there.
But don't you think that that does speak to the larger point that we're trying to get at, which is good journalism uncovers corruption? And
Okay, I mean, good journalism does uncover corruption,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure these two things are linked. An audit
oh,
is not.
but they are.
Okay, so you need to explain to me, do you understand what an audit does and the degree to which it is linked to the question that you're asking?
I believe so.
Okay, go
but
ahead. Give me
I don't mind. I
give
don't.
me
I don't
your
mind learning.
explanation.
No, I don't mind learning. So, what I would suggest is that the audit that they have in the military doesn't really look at whether or not there's efficacy. It's just whether they got delivered the thing that they ordered. And they
That
are
is any audit. That is any audit. That is true.
But generally, those audits aren't $400 billion for Raytheon and $1.7 trillion for a plane that doesn't seem to be doing. Like, there is a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse within a system.
Audits and
that
waste,
is-
fraud, and abuse are not the same thing. So let's decompose
Then
these
please
pieces for a
educate
moment.
me on
Sure.
what
So an
the
audit is
difference is.
exactly what you just described,
Yes.
which is, do I know what was delivered to which place?
Right.
The ability to pass an audit, or the fact that the DoD has not passed an audit, is not suggestive of waste, fraud, and abuse. That is completely false right there. So
what is it
now it's a
suggestive
question of, it's suggestive that we don't have an accurate inventory that we can pull up of what we have where. That is not the same as saying we can't do that because waste, fraud, and abuse has occurred.
So, in my world,
Yeah.
that's waste.
How is that waste?
If I give you $1 billion and you can't tell me what happened to it, that to me is wasteful. That means you
Well,
are
we didn't
not
necessarily-
responsible. But if you can't tell me where it went, then what am I supposed to think? And when there has been reporting, I mean, this is not, look, I'm not saying this is on you and that you caused this, but I think it's a tough argument to
I'm pretty
make
sure I
that
didn't cause it.
an $850 billion budget to an organization that can't pass an audit and tell you where that money went, like, I think most people would consider that somewhere in the realm of waste, fraud, or abuse, because they would wonder why that money isn't well accounted for. And especially when they see food insecurity on military bases, and they see...
You want to talk about that? Because that's a good, we should be talking. I mean,
Well,
I'm
it's
trying to
all-
understand
is-
where you're trying to go, other than the dollars, which
Well,
really
it's-
bother you.
I think it doesn't really bother me. I think it's all connected.
Okay.
I think
tell
when
me,
I
tell
look...
me that story. Tell me how you're thinking
Well,
about that.
when I see a State Department get a certain amount of money and a military budget be 10 times that, and I see a struggle within government to get people like more basic services, and then that department that got that, I mean, we got out of 20 years of war and the Pentagon got a $50 billion raise. Like, that's shocking to me. Now, I may not understand exactly the ins and outs and the incredible magic of an audit, but I'm a human being who lives on the earth and can't figure out how $850 billion to a department means that the rank and file still have to be on food stamps. Like, to me, that's fucking corruption. I'm sorry. And if that blows your mind, and if you think like that's like a crazy agenda for me to have, I really think that that's institutional thinking, and that it's not looking at the day-to-day reality of the people that you call the greatest fighting force in the world. So I get back to this idea of like, I'm not looking to pick a fight with you, but I am surprised at that the reaction to these questions are, you don't know what an audit is, bucko. Like, that's just weird to me.
Okay. On food insecurity, major priority for us. A lot of funds are going toward that. The biggest issues we have found, first of all, we have significantly increased funding on food insecurity. And we do think we are getting much better on that. We believe some of the challenges we face are not what you often think of as, food insecurity as hunger. They're really around, do we have food available, for instance, as people come on and off shifts? Is it healthy food? Those are the types of food insecurity issues we are seeing in and around our military installations. We have increased pay 2 times in a row here. We've done 4.6% pay raise last year. We've asked for a 5.2% pay raise this year. We've also increased basic allowances and increased housing and pay and other allowances. So overall, we definitely think we need to increase the spending that we are putting forward toward our service members and their families. We're putting our money where our mouth is. Another big area is childcare. Spending a lot more money on childcare. That includes both childcare facilities and it includes benefit that allows folks to go out on the economy to get childcare and have that subsidized by the government. Those are all examples of ways we're trying to put money forward for our service members and their families.
Are these?
So that was interesting. I mean, I'm kind of on. I'm kind of on Stewart's side a little bit there. I mean, in my life and everything that I've worked in an audit, if you don't pass, then obviously you did something wrong. Whether it was, misplaced, misaccounted for, mismanaged, however you may want to put it. But, I mean, I think Jon Stewart's absolutely correct in the fact that an audit is... and not passing an audit, especially one of that substantial degree, is definitely corruption, right? Like, is he far off on that? Am I crazy, or what do y'all think?
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, so if you can't do an audit, if you can't prove that you're honest for the government, then you're corrupt. That's it. The government has to be held to a higher standard. It has to be held to the minimum standard of passing audits, and any list of excuses on, well, it would cost a lot of money to do this. There is a series of spreadsheets somebody has within the Pentagon that has where the money went, and they just need to prove that it actually produced the products that they said they were going to make, buy. And if they can't do that, then they're lying. I mean, really, that's. Am I wrong? Like, what do you are you expected to believe the government just telling you, yeah, we spent it right, all of the money, we spent all of it right? No, you have to prove it. The government is always required to prove what they've done, because it's not a person, right? It's an entity full of thousands of flawed people, hundreds of thousands, millions and millions of flawed people, and we have to hold them accountable. The way we do that is by auditing them. Do it, probably on a every other year basis, something. But yeah, just as much as I think they should be auditing all of the justices and finding out where they're getting all their gifts from, all the generals should be audited as well. Where did they spend all the money? Was it appropriate spending? And if it isn't, then we need to replace that general with somebody new. Every one of these generals gets a list of money that there's, or line item, exactly how much every aircraft is worth, every bullet is worth, how much every soldier is essentially worth. They have all of that. You compile that stuff, you send out somebody to check, okay, this general said there's this, this, and this. You get a third party to do it. When other companies sell a product, they are required to get an auditor to come in and survey the thing that was constructed and make sure that it's up to code and satisfied all the requirements of the voter, the constituency, the government that paid for it. And the fact that trying to weasel her way through here with, well, let's just understand what corruption and audits are. We know. You find the corruption through the audit. That's right. The entire point. And to play semantics games like that on C-SPAN with a smart man sitting there, like to just, well, I mean, obviously you don't know what an audit is. Like, what? What are you doing, dude? I could imagine in his head he was thinking, what are you doing? Yeah. Like, you can't just flip me off like this.
So Manny just jumped in. He said, let's be clear. The problem she had was his assertion that the DOD is corrupt, right? Question mark. There are restaurants that struggle with inventory, so why is it so crazy that the largest military in history is having difficulty keeping track of its inventory, which is what an audit tracks, especially considering how active our military is around the planet. Often moving equipment as quickly as possible because it's life or death for some. Should they be better? Yes, but I'm willing to bet it's not nearly as easy as it sounds. And then he said, immediately assuming bad intentions isn't the most helpful. Working on spreadsheets with thousands of rows and thousands of columns is not easy. I've done it.
Yeah, so Manny, I am in somewhat of an agreement with you, right? Like, I do agree that it is a massive structure to keep up with, right? And yeah, I mean, I've worked with spreadsheets that are of those kind of sizes as well. But you know, to my point is, in a private industry, you are expected to pass every single audit. If you don't pass that audit, not only
Jail.
Well, jail.
Probably jail.
Not only that, but then your corporate's going to look right at you and they're going to say, you have 3 months to fix this, and if you don't fix this, we're coming back, and you're basically fired. So, and if you've ever heard of the concept of Six Sigma, you know, it's basically getting to an accuracy point of 99.9%. Six Sigma or Lean Six Sigma theories. I've taken a couple classes on that. I've passed a couple certifications on that as well. So my question is not necessarily, you know, let's just say she is from a good state, like she's trying to not have bad intentions. But I simply want to ask, what resources do they need? It's the government. They can use whatever resource they want to be able to ensure that these audits come out correctly. And the fact that the Pentagon has failed 5, 6 in a row, just alone.
Yeah, but you're saying all the resources they want. There's the flaw. They don't want
the resources.
They don't want to do this. They know that if they keep digging, there's more and more skeletons the further down they go. Yeah, they do specifically do not want to do this. And that was the face of it. The mocking, like smiling, trying to get the crowd behind. This is like serious business. She should be giving a serious answer to this question. And she's playing politics.
Yeah, Manny, I know you said you weren't necessarily going to be able to watch the video. Now, if you weren't able to watch, I would encourage you to go back and just kind of read her body language, the way she is. It really seemed like she was being condescending, kind of mean, kind of defensive. You know, I think Jon Stewart's just asking questions. And then, you know, I mean, if you're getting attacked about your intelligence over the difference between audits and corruption and things. I mean, yeah, I'd be a little on the attack as well. You know, I don't.
That's just it. John didn't attack.
Right, fair enough.
Like,
yeah.
John didn't attack. John asked questions, and because he asked those questions specifically, it put her immediately on the defensive, and then she went into mockery and like denigration almost. Like it's. Yeah, her body language screamed defensive mind track. It screamed a lot of different things, actually. I mean, I'm not going to go into accusing her of anything because I don't know her. This is the first time I've ever seen her. But basically, a lot of the cues that I picked up were that she was either stretching the truth, maybe not completely telling the truth. But, you know, when it comes back to like what you were saying, Dave, what resources do they need? If they can't get an audit right, then some part of that $805 billion that we sent to the Department of Defense and the military, to the Pentagon itself, maybe $1 billion of that should go towards making sure their audits are correct.
Right.
Wouldn't you think?
Yeah.
Or maybe $500 million. I mean, how many people do you need working on this to make sure that it gets right?
Right.
And how much money are you going to save? In just the
long
short
haul.
term, you say long haul. In the short run,
in the short
you're
run,
going to find so many gaps. You're going to find so much erroneous spending and everything else, and that's why they won't do it.
Yeah,
that's why they won't do it. People are getting favors. People are, you know, generals, colonels, whoever is doing the spending is. There are many people in there that are friends. It's a good old boy network, and she's at the top of it. And she's like, well, I cannot turn in all the friends that are making sure that I still look like I am doing a good job. Like, that's what it is. And they're the same way. The people below them feel the same way. All the way down.
All right, so Manny came back in. He said, I'm willing to bet it's not a resource problem. It's probably more of a system issue where they haven't developed a system that is able to track this much stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, she was definitely condescending, and she should have done better. She should have done better as a leader in the face of the DOD. But again, that's a her problem, not a corruption problem, in my opinion.
Yeah. I can.
Yeah, but
she's at the top.
she's at the top, and it does look like she is
like-
covering for the corruption that may or may not exist. Like Steve said a second ago, that's what the audits are for, is to uncover either, gaps in spending, uncover maybe where money's coming off the books in a way that it shouldn't.
Waste, fraud, and abuse.
Fraud, and abuse. I mean, that's what an audit is for, is to make sure that things that we're paying for are getting to where they need to go and they're on time. So if those things aren't happening, then we need to, first of all, I guess, assume that something went wrong in the supply chain, or two, somebody made something go wrong in that supply chain.
You guys want a legislative fix? I have one.
Let's hear it.
The Army has a program where if you come up with a way to save money for the military, they will give you 10% of this.
Oh my goodness, I'm working on that now.
People have become millionaires overnight by saying, hey, we're driving trucks here and then here. If you just drive them here, or any other thing that you can think of, you will make, imagine the savings in fuel if there was a depot in Atlanta that was for things going to Benning, and you were driving past Benning in order to get to Atlanta just to unload boxes, reload them, and then take them to Benning. Right? If they're coming from Florida, let's say, a naval base or something like that. That sort of waste was happening all over the place in the Army. They institute this program. People are catching problems all the time. We found tons of stuff like that in aviation. I'm sure it happens in all the other branches. Do it for this. If you find fraud, waste, fraud, or abuse, so right now we have waste is the main one that the Army is trying to solve. You get 10%. That's a huge incentive for anybody.
So if you save them $1 million or $1 billion, you're getting what, 100 million off 10%?
There must be some sort of limit there. but I don't know if anybody's found a problem with that.
That extensive, right?
But all I'm saying is, if you have people within the Pentagon that are worried, okay, if I announce that General Copenhagen, if you're a general, I'm not talking about you, General Copenhagen is, he's skimming off the top. He's making sure we're buying helicopters that aren't actually helicopters or whatever. And I report him. Not only are you terrified that something terrible is going to happen to you now, but maybe if we had the inverse, where you get 10% of whatever waste he was spending currently, or, fraud, whatever it was. We just need to expand systems like that. We need to incentivize good behavior, incentivize whistleblowing. And I think that, you would get rid of a lot of this with that.
Yeah. Now, so going back to Manny's last comment, I would agree it's more of a system issue. Definitely there. I mean, Excel can only handle so much. It's tough to keep track of that much. Being a resource problem. So the only reason I bring that up is because I guess the more people you have to tackle that sheet, the more you could assign them specific rows, sections, things of that nature. But I see your point there, Manny. And I do kind of also agree with him that it's more of her failing as a leader than it is necessary. Like, don't get me wrong, the DOD definitely needs to get their shit together, right? Like, we can all kind of agree with that. But from a corruption perspective, I mean, my problem is when you fail so many times in a row, that's where the issue begins, right? Like, we have to eventually find a way to have you all pass. And that's just kind of where I'm at. Like, you can't just keep failing and be like, oh, well, there's no solution. Just throw our hands up, whatever, good luck. No, you gotta find a solution.
So I'm just curious, am I the only one that had Jack Nicholson come through their head on that video when he's like, we just want to find the waste, abuse, corruption. Like, we just want the truth. And I could have seen her being like, you can't handle the truth.
Totally.
Like, that's kind of
There's a man standing on a wall.
That is exactly what I thought. Am I being punked right now? But I mean, that's literally how it felt almost. It was like in a roundabout way. She was like, "Oh, tell me what you think an audit is. Tell me what you think corruption is." And it was kind of like you can't handle the truth kind of moment. I mean, and maybe that's like the DOD's stance on this is, we have a lot of things that are going on that you should not know about as regular citizens because it endangers the life of active military or assets overseas or something like that. So you can't handle the truth. I'm trying to play devil's advocate here, guys. I know what it is.
Remind me
it's
that
waste
movie
and
again.
spending. A Few Good Men.
A Few Good Men. That's
Yeah.
right.
Wasn't it Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson?
Yeah,
that was like
Tom Cruise.
that was
the
like
lawyer,
his
I
like
think.
one of his staple that was one of Tom's like staple roles
When
at
he first
the
got
beginning.
in.
That and like Days of Thunder and obviously Top Gun. But
Well, Mission Impossible.
no. This was a decade before Mission
Before,
Impossible.
okay.
This was like 82, 83, something like that. Because Top Gun was 84, right?
Was Risky Business, Tom?
I think that was his breakout role.
Flying around in his boxers. So good luck.
With just the dress shirt. Yeah.
Let's
I guess we're gonna go to the next topic because we can't handle the truth.
You can't handle the truth. All right, so there, Manny, appreciate your contribution. Of course, you guys, thank you for everything you got going on there. But yeah, we're gonna move on. Of course, we will keep on top of things like that because sooner or later, the DOD, the Pentagon, everybody, they all have to start passing their audits because sooner or later. I mean, they don't necessarily, but
You can't handle the truth.
I can't handle the truth, damn it. But we do want to touch up on our last subject because this is going to be a big, extensive one, especially with Steve's expertise here. We want to make sure that we get everything we can with him. So real quick, let's talk about the latest election polls. For, of course, the 2024 election. So right now, it's looking like...
Dude, can you
make that a little bit bigger if you can. You go to the top right where the three lines are, and it should be Zoom, and just down right there, yep, increase that a little bit for me. Thank you. A little bit more. That's good. Perfect. Right there. All right, so while y'all are looking at this, you can kind of see that it looks like it's going to come down again, potentially, to a Biden-Trump. Now, this is pending everything going on with Trump, of course, because if he does get found guilty of a felony charge, he obviously will not be able to run again. Then I'd imagine DeSantis ends up winning that. I'd imagine. But we'll keep an eye out on that. Unless, Steve, you have any other thoughts on that. I'd like to hear what you think.
No, I think that if Trump is allowed to run, that
I definitely believe he'll be the front runner.
there's a whole block of voters that consider them partially Republican,
Donald Trump, yeah.
and that is enough to wash out all the rest.
Right, which makes sense. So, and then Biden, of course, going to be his incumbent because
That's the way the system's built.
It's just the way it is.
If you're the incumbent, then you're the leader of the party. That's
Yeah.
literally the way the system is built.
So, I mean,
The leader of the party gets to decide whether or not they're running.
yeah, and so more than likely, you will definitely see Biden unless somehow somebody on the Democratic side ends up taking that over.
Kind
So
of startling imagining Biden if he won and it was like another 3 years of his presidency after that. Like how is he going to be talking? How will his mannerisms be at that point?
And again, this is not even like me being like, this is just me being realistic, right? Biden, if I'm not mistaken, is 78, 79 years old. At that age, you are more than likely in a retirement home. You are downsized and you have
More than likely in a retirement home?
or
Yeah, I don't know.
80 years old, or you're retired, you're at your home, you have some sort of long-term health care, you have family that comes checks up on you. Not often are you working at 80 years old. Can we come to a group consensus
your
on
mental
that?
elasticity completely
Gone
at that point.
Yeah.
Learning new things, he's not doing any of the stuff
No.
that I'm sorry, I didn't mean like you have to tweet to be president.
Social
But,
media.
like he's barely communicating. Like he should be out there saying, "Hey, these leaked things about Russia. I'm the commander in chief. I'm going to explain to everybody what's
Right.
going on right now because we need to have stability in our country, and you need to have leadership you can trust."
Probably can't.
That
do that.
should be at the Oval Office. Listen, my fellow Americans, we've had these 2 things that just came out. Let me tell you, they're both bullshit. Or whatever.
Right.
Like, at least the competence to do that and not send somebody else out to do some talking points and then laugh their way through the rest of it.
I agree.
It's embarrassing, and it's startling to imagine in 4 years from now how little communication we'll be getting out of the White House.
Right.
If this level of communication for 4 years does not result in a change of guard, then we'll see it exponentially decrease. Like they might just stop doing the press. Why do the pressers if he's going to win no matter what? If it doesn't matter how much you communicate with the people, if your communication is so bad that every time you do it, the polls just bump down a little bit until the media can recover it for you, then you just stop doing it and just let the media run with it. He's here, he's there, he's doing all these amazing things for you. Don't worry, we won't show you, but it's happening. Trust us.
Yeah, I am getting concerned because, again, if Biden does come up with another 4 years, where is his mental capacity going to be at? I mean, we've already seen it's like non-existent at this point. And again, this isn't like, but I feel bad for him, right? Jill should feel horrible about herself for not taking care of her husband and not putting him in a position, because being president of the United States brings a stress that I could only imagine, right? Like, I couldn't imagine having that kind of stress on me, because you are leading the world's most powerful nation. And you are having to keep on top of more. And more or less, you are creating a team, right? You create a team, you delegate, you make sure you have the right people in the right places, and you're making sure that you're trying to run, again, the most powerful country in the world. I couldn't imagine that kind of stress. So the fact that they're allowing an 80-year-old man who, again, we just talked about, right? Your mental capacity is like completely diminished. You're not learning new things. You're not keeping up with technology the way it is. How does it get any better? It doesn't.
Well, he's a magical human being. He can change whether or not his earlobes are connected at will.
Oh no. Lizard people.
Sorry, I'm on Twitter too much. My For You is just full of conspiracies about whether or not there's 5 Bidens or just 3 of them.
Is that why they always stumble in every
That's
speech he gives?
probably acting classes. The other ones have to learn how to stumble properly.
Man, did you see the? I mean, again,
that's all kind of mean, honestly. He is a human. He's an old man. It's embarrassing that all this is happening.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be happening. Somebody should have stopped it. Hillary should have stopped it. She probably could have. Maybe she wanted us all to see what it was like with it.
Maybe that's what happens. Maybe Hillary just announces here in January and is like, "I'm coming back."
That would be wild. She had her own falling problems, though. If you all recover,
That's true.
fan tossing incident.
Yes, that's true.
So maybe somebody that can walk, but then we're gonna end up with Gavin Newsom. Election polls. So yeah, I mean, are we all just agreed then? It's gonna be Trump if he's legally allowed to, DeSantis if he's not, and then Biden if he wants to. Who's
I don't know.
Who's number 2 for the D team?
Kennedy's not looking bad.
Kennedy.
Robert Kennedy
For the D team?
for the. I believe he's running as a Democrat, if I'm not mistaken.
On there?
Wait, from Louisiana? I think he's a
I don't know what that
Republican.
means.
But the other thing is this, though: if Trump is legally not allowed to run for presidency, I think the Republican side all of a sudden goes into a chaotic motion, because DeSantis is there, but he hasn't.
Democratic bid.
Isn't he the one that's like
A lawyer. Or nephew of.
Huh.
so?
he actually today.
Wait.
Oh, I
Let
said
me see a picture of that guy.
Sorry for
Is it-
mocking you.
No, it's okay.
That's not the Kennedy I was thinking about.
Okay, there's more Kennedys than I was aware.
I'm on the same page
I
as
thought
you.
they were all on airplanes.
I thought. Oh, dag on, Steve, coming in with the. So, but yeah, like I was saying though, if Trump is legally not allowed to run for presidency, I think the Democrats automatically win, and I think that because of now all of a sudden the party just becomes so split because Trump's not there. How many people are just like, no, this is complete bullcrap, I'm not even voting? Or do you think that Trump would then endorse DeSantis to run and say, MAGA, go to
It'll be
DeSantis?
hard for him to generate the level of fire that the MAGA movement kind of has. I think that he could, I think DeSantis would inherit a lot of that, but you're not going to get 100% enthusiasm. There's a base that literally will only vote for that one man.
Yeah.
Like when local elections come, they do not go vote unless you trick them into thinking.
Or if Trump says, I endorse this person in your district for the base.
Maybe you get 90%.
Yeah.
But they're looking for a big T.
What do you think about like the middle ground, the middle vote? Who's going to get that?
I think at this point, I think that that's going to be more Republican leaning, and that I could be completely way off. But just seeing what is going on in the world and in the country and the economy and how Biden can't really form full sentences without stumbling through or having a gaffe, quote unquote. I just don't think people who are sitting in the middle and are thinking about this logically are saying, I want that guy for another 4 years.
But those same middle people are also very uncomfortable still voting for Donald Trump. Like very uncomfortable. They think that it's like a slight on their honor as like a moderate person. They really do.
I mean, do you think this maybe could be the rise of a third party?
No, absolutely not.
You don't think so?
No, there's way too much money involved in this process to allow for that. This is 200 years of money. I mean, you'll have Libertarian Party 3%, Green Party 2%. Like that stuff's always sort of floats around.
So yeah, my question was going to be to you. So first off, and it's obviously it's whatever you're comfortable on answering. So your political view wise, right? Like what would you say you identify as? But also on top of that, do you ever see a third party being able to come up in the United States?
I don't see a third party ever coming up in the United States for the reason I just explained. There's far too much money. There's $100 million donors that have millions and millions of dollars invested in both parties, and to have a third party disrupt that system is going to cost them another $100 million, and they're just not going to let
They're just not going to let it happen.
Yeah, it would be more bribes, whatever, lobbying, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I ran as a Republican for the Board of Supervisors.
Right.
I would consider myself more socially accepting, but I don't believe in legislating social positions.
Right.
Generally, and I think that right now we're generally legislating social positions in a hard left perspective, as far as schools and everything else goes. That's what I've been witnessing. Is that
I'd agree.
The thumb is on the scale, and it's like you guys were the ones begging for the thumb to get off the scale all the way through my childhood. It was like, stop restricting our art, stop restricting our music, stop restricting this, and now it's we're gonna restrict everything, or not restrict everything. It's all gonna be ours, our art, our music, our everything. And if you try and produce anything else or put it in the school or do this or that or the other, I mean, you pull prayer out of school and then you plaster a new religion all over the walls. You know, the new progressive religion
right.
as a flag instead of a cross.
Right.
Put it everywhere and you make sure all the kids look at it and talk to them about it all day long. And it's Like that wasn't what you guys were asking for, you know. And so I don't think that we should be doing that kind of indoctrination. The school system, a lot of money on inappropriate things, but I want more love.
I wish.
I want more prayer in the system. I want to see more happy families and more happy children, and that generally kind of makes me Republican.
Right.
But I've got a strong libertarian streak through me. I see libertarianism as unattainable utopia.
Right.
Like you can't eliminate the government because a new government will form instantly. You might call it the mafia, you might call it whatever you want, just corporations or something like that. There's always going to be a guy at the top.
Right.
And so it's better if we have a constitution that restricts what the guy at the top is allowed to do, and we make that constitution as strong as possible with as many limitations on that government as possible. And but the people need to vote for this stuff. People need to decide that this is what they want as well. We in this room represent a very small fraction of freedom, liberty-minded people that, you know, I don't know, love the Constitution. I'd like to see the Constitution maybe expanded, more rights protected.
Yeah, right.
But it just seems like all of them are being eroded if they haven't been fully. You know, I don't know. Did you guys follow all the Twitter file releases?
Yeah, oh my goodness, that was wild.
We've got the executive branch of the United States government sending lists, thousands of U.S. citizens, lists of their names, saying these people no longer have the right to speak publicly.
Yep.
What?
Taking away their First Amendment?
And now that we know that, we know it for certain. What has happened? Where is the list of FBI agents that have been fired for being complicit in this? Where is that list?
There's no list.
There's got to be a list. We can produce that list. You can audit the FBI, right?
Right.
We know where it came from.
Hold on now. Audits. Are a little different.
Your
than that.
audits and your corruption.
That's just making sure that things went from point A to point B.
This guy thinks that you fight corruption with audits. Come on. So,
Steve, you're making sense over here. We need you to calm down.
Yeah, I guess that became a very long-winded.
No, I love it.
I was always a Republican through my youth, just because parents have that influence. I joined the military, and you think apolitically largely while you're in the military. You're not supposed to have an opinion. That's, you know, I was a good soldier in that I just played video games when I wasn't flying helicopters. So I didn't have very many opinions. And then I graduated, and I was medically retired from the Army, spinal cord injury from flying, and then, lost. 90% of Army aviators leave neck or back injury.
Wow.
90%.
Goodness.
I still would have done it because it's such a cool thing, even if they had told me, but I would have liked to have been told.
Right,
like,
yeah.
Going with your eyes open, and they're like, if you're really lucky, you'll leave without a neck or back injury. You're like, wait, what? You know,
They don't tell you these statistics.
They will never
before?
tell you that. You know, you're gonna
course they
sit in a
won't.
giant vibrating machine for 6 hours at a time. You know, fumes blowing into your face the whole time, but you won't get cancer or die of a debilitated back injury.
Oh my god.
They would never sell it that way. Instead, we get Tom Cruise slapping.
Lots of sweat.
Yeah.
Lots of sweat.
So I have a
Played
question for
volleyball.
Steve.
It was amazing.
I have a question for Steve. So like, the left is in power right now, basically, and then we'll vote, and let's say the right comes back into power. And I mean, just from what I see, is the same thing. Doesn't matter who's in power. The right comes in, it's the same status quo. The left comes in, it's the same status quo. So I'd give some pushback on that. Okay.
Generically speaking, you're right in a lot of ways. But I'm going to throw a little bit of sunshine on the first 2 years of the 2016 White House. So when the 2016 election happened, we actually experienced an enormous amount of deregulation that doesn't get any credit. The United States, through deregulation, increased productivity in the United States by over $200 billion in the first 2 years. That's $200 billion that would have been spent on accountants redoing regulatory things that, or whatever.
Like audits.
Well, no, these were restrictions placed on the free market. These were restrictions that had been built into the system to protect monopolies.
Oh, okay. That's what
right?
you're saying.
So we increased productivity in the United States by $200 billion through a Republican Congress with a Republican president that signed. What we did was you had to remove 2 regulations every time you wanted to add 1, right? And so for 2 years, that's what happened. And then the government shutdown started, which was done by that administration. So you can't just there's plenty of clouds, and there were plenty of missteps. The Republicans did a terrible job with healthcare when they had the House, the Senate, and the White House. They did nothing, right? Literally nothing. They had spoken for years about how they were going to fix this if they only could, and then they actually had all 3, and that almost never happens. They didn't have to negotiate. They had to negotiate with themselves. And they didn't do anything.
And
so,
that, I think right there is the problem with the Republican Party, is Democrats have gotten on the same page, and they have this very loud voice on the far left that is leading that meeting. And they've just said, okay, we're going to fall in line. Whereas Republicans, you have, I feel like there's too many dissenting voices where they're like, oh, well, I don't necessarily agree with that, or hold on now, what about my state? And Democrats are like, no, let's just push it through. What would you say? Would you say that that's accurate, or would you say that there's, what would you say?
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. Yes, there's that going on.
So you would say that the Republican Party is more split within itself?
100%. It's the big tent party. It really is. You have 20% like hardcore-ish libertarian types that are like, we should just end the entire government. Then you got a good solid 60% that are in there that are just old dog conservative type people that
are considered far right now.
They're all considered far right.
That's
like
true.
Just being in this room, we're all far right. There's a
That's
flag
true.
there. You're far right. Sorry. Welcome to the club. I knocked on 5,600 doors in 2016. I knocked on 3,600 doors in 2019. I'm knocking on a bunch in between. And I can tell you, if there's an American flag out front, there's over a 98% chance that the person in there is voting for the G.
Wow.
Over 98%.
What about a coexist flag?
I actually don't see many. But there was plenty of BLM stuff out there.
Gotcha.
And identify flag, which also tells. I'll get into it. It's basically a communist organization that defrauded probably millions of people and spent the money very poorly.
Well, when you saw the audit that hit the BLM, and there was like what, $76 million in
Bought a $9 million house to shoot YouTube videos in.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's $76 million in donations, right? And then none of that went back to black communities or anything like that. There's I think Candace Owens is actually like leading the charge on that. Like, where did this money go? What did it go towards? And then, like
I
you said,
take auditing
$9
the Fed
million
over auditing BLM.
$9 million went to a mansion that they could shoot videos in. How much of that funded these, bailing these people out of jail who burnt down cities? Like, it's insane to me. What would you say is the biggest hurdle that the Republican Party would have to overcome in order to actually implement some of these things that you hear people talking about? Like, I'm going to go on a far out example here, but like the income tax, eliminating income tax, like that's a big one. But
there aren't, the Republican Party would be total.
Really?
You maybe get.
They enjoy a lot of that tax. now. Now that they
yeah,
have
they
it,
would
they
say it would
enjoy
break
a
the
lot
system.
of it. Yeah.
Hey, we have
Yeah.
systems that are based on this. Like, no, that's not.
But
Yeah.
what would you say is the biggest hurdle to getting Republicans on the same page?
Yeah, I see
From
what
your
you're saying.
experience.
Kind of
You
like the
can't-
Democrat
you
Party.
can't. It's the big tent party. You have the libertarians, you have the neocons, you have the disaffected liberal types that are just not allowed to be Democrats anymore. You like all of them are mashed together, and they disagree on most things. Not most. They disagree on 30% of it, and that 30% is enough to make it so that they're non-effectual most of the time. It's got to be like a consistent, hardcore, specific thing from the Constitution, and then we'll be like, oh yeah, well, that one.
They gotta pay attention to that other 70% though. And again, I'm not a parties guy. I hate parties. I'll be honest. Like I do not like the idea of parties. I like the idea of following an
That you
individual.
were a lot of fun in college.
I was a great time. Actually, believe it or not, I didn't really care about politics until just a couple years ago. Well, right after college, probably about 23, 24.
So Naif, like you, was a good little citizen and just played video games during college.
That is 100% correct. I worked full time. I went through college, and I
Didn't drink a single drop of alcohol.
That is incorrect. No, but yeah, like I am the individual who's not big on parties, right? But I do believe, and just like Ryan has said, or any of us in this room will talk about, the Democrats have truly found a way to come together to be able to agree on again, like 80 to 90% of things, to be able to fight against the Republicans and be able to tear them apart. And it's gotten to the point where now, like you said, that pendulum, it's going to swing back to the Republicans, right? It's going to swing back, but I see it just swinging right, and it's just going to keep going back and forth. How do we break that cycle? And to the point where we're actually here to help American citizens.
I would worry about that question. How do you break that cycle? That would be revolution. Because that pendulum you're describing,
Yeah.
that is the system. That is America.
That's
That's
scary.
how it was built.
And it's meant to be that way.
It was supposed to go. That's too much. All right.
Tiptoe it back.
No. Unfortunately, when it gets to the bottom, it's always really fast past that middle section.
Yeah.
So yeah, that when you say how do we break that, you're talking about breaking America.
So I've unfortunately, because I have predicted this as well, and I've said the same thing you have. I feel like we're at a point where now we truly will not get out of this cycle until we see some sort of actual revolution with arms.
Like I don't know if my goal is to stop that. That's what I'm
Not
saying.
necessarily
the
yours,
system
right.
Is this
Right.
And I mean, right now I feel that it's gone. What's perspective? So it's over here, and it's going. Nope.
See,
It's over.
yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
how to
No,
do
no,
this.
yep. It's
Why is
over
my
here.
brain not
It's
working?
over here because
All
this
right,
is left.
It's going back.
And then
Like two mirrors at once.
So if you want to confuse Steve, just put up a mirror.
Yeah, exactly.
And then another mirror behind him.
So, yeah, well, no. Okay. Breaking that system, stopping that system would be revolution. And I am not pro-revolution.
I'm not pro-revolution either, because I think a lot more bad comes from that. But there has to be a way to get the system to be more for the people, because it seems like Democrats right now are hell-bent on destroying what we know as America. And it seems like Republicans are hell-bent on arguing with themselves. So right now, the whole like destroying America as we know it seems to be the winning side. So how do that's I guess I keep coming back to that. Like, how do we get the pendulum to stop swinging towards the, hey, let's tear down everything we know and love about America and prop up this new system that is so extreme and allows so many different things that have previously been considered like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? So
The way we do that is through personal accountability.
boom.
So there is a growing movement in this country of homeschooling that is going to create a generation of people in 15 that are going to be fast. They're going to be they're going to have perspectives on the world. They're going to have perspectives. They're going to be artists and engineers, and don't go to college and get indoctrinated just like everybody else in the exact same pattern of thought. They're going to be people that are going out to work for Elon Musk because you don't have to have a degree to work for him. You just have to be welding, or you have to be really good at
whatever
whatever it is. He just wants the best.
Yep.
And if you spent 15 years on a farm, learning how to read, fixing tractors, and now you have an interest in building electric engines or generators rather, like that's where you go if you're the best. And we're gonna have it. So we've been lacking that for a very long time. What we saw, one of the greatest silver linings of the whole government shutdowns of the 2020 era, is a massive, I think it's went up to as 10% in total of students are being homeschooled in the state of Virginia.
Wow.
Where it was at 2% for decades. And that increase, and it's creating a cultural shift where if you can homeschool, it's seen now as you're doing the best you can for your, where it wasn't when I was a kid. If you were one of the kids that got homeschooled in my area, you were seen as a weirdo for like, why are they doing it? Oh, he must not be able to do it. It's not looked like that anymore. Some people are still old fashioned in that thinking. Most people are thinking, how are you able to do that? How can you do that without tutoring? You actually get to spend all that time with your kid. Wow. And people are getting tutors. There's online, there's a lot more options that were generated through this process. So many parents that had been just in a malaise for years, not watching, not going to PTA conferences, not doing any of that stuff, were at home and watched the class that their kid was taking and witnessed what a class looked like. And then were like, nope, that's not supposed to happen. That's not what happened when I was a kid. I thought it was the same as when I was a kid. I thought it was just, a little bit of bullying and you daydream for 8 hours. Now it's all this stuff. No. And that's not where it is everywhere. Like, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of amazing teachers out there, and there's plenty of great students that will go on to do great things. I just think that a disproportionate number are going to end up coming out of this homeschooling revolution. They're going to be thinking like all the inventors of the. We have a chart of the number of people creating inventions. Whatever it is, it has diminished if you do a per million count of people that are inventing things. It used to be substantial, like 10x higher than it is now. And I think that that's because we standardized our education system to such a degree through Common Core or this or that or the other thing that everybody's thinking the exact same way. Mm-hmm. And how does anybody invent anything? They're all thinking the exact same way.
Yeah. And that was always something as a kid that we were told, embrace your differences because that's what makes you unique.
They said it, but they didn't help you do it.
Well, yes and no. My personal experience coming through college or high school and elementary school and everything is like, if you were really good at something, then you were kind of propped up in that area, in that field.
I agree with that.
So, you were kind of pushed those ways. If you were creative, you were kind of pushed that way. If you were a good speaker, you were kind of pushed that way. Would you say that maybe one of the best things that could happen to America would be the diversification of education?
That's exactly what I just described.
Yeah, I mean,
there's nothing more diversified than 1 million individual teachers with 1 million individual students all learning at their own pace.
But what I'm saying is not even just in the homeschool, like could maybe pushing it and propping up private education and then having, public education maybe diminish, and then so it's not state funded and state run, because I think what we're seeing is the product of, like you said, standardized testing, standardized education, and everybody is thinking the exact same way. Okay, now I'm going to put my tin hat on here, but Democrats, in my opinion, have kind of seen that, and now with the advent of social media, as we saw with the Twitter files, government's getting in on this deal, and they're influencing the way now, because everybody's thinking this way. Okay, well, if everybody's thinking the same way and we know that this triggers all of these people, then we can use this trigger to then push people the way we want them to go. Whereas if we diversified education and we diversified people's childhood and made it to where, people are coming from all different walks of life, and now they're not just being pumped into a system that tries to funnel you into a college that then pushes the agenda further. All of a sudden, now you have a lot of independent thinkers out there that then can influence not just how the country's going, but like you were talking about innovation. I think you could influence politics to a massive degree in that sense by just simply diversifying education. And it sounds like you're kind of on board with that, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, yeah, I think that I don't know if we have any studies that show it, but where the money follows the student rather than the institution, improvement, art, huge sprawling, 100 new schools open in Albemarle. That the money follows this. Because your neighbor would just say, all right, I'm starting a school for the kids on this street. Here's the curriculum. I'd like any parents that want to be involved in this. I'm going to charge $60,000 to do this because we've got 4 kids on this street. That more than compensates $15,000 per. That's what the government is offering. That's what it is in Albemarle County, $15,000 per student, right? 4 kids is $60K. It should be 4 kids per teacher. Instead, it's 30 because of administration costs. Right? And you're putting all of them in one place. You took away the SRO, so now they're unprotected. The amount of sexual assault and assault going on in Albemarle County School, much higher than it should be 0, but it's like high instead. I don't know the numbers because I don't publish them. There have been TikTok videos, press, all of these things. Group fights, group assaults, bathrooms, etc. Massive drug use.
Oh yeah.
We have a bathroom at Albemarle High School that every teacher and student knows you should not go in unless you're looking for sex.
Wow.
And the teachers don't go in there, administrators don't go in there, and the students that don't want those things.
You can't just. I mean, and that's crazy to me because again, as an administrator, you think you'd be able to shut that down.
It's a safe space for crime.
That is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and that's just one example. I'm sure that across the country there's many more things like this. But if the money followed the student, how many of those students would just leave instantly?
Right.
Just leave instantly. New things would start up. Odds, this, that, the other, and maybe I don't know. We would have auditing issues. Obviously, we would. Like, I'm just going to be candid.
But
You're going to end up with auditing issues.
Do you even know what's the difference between an audit and corruption?
But I think that maybe it wouldn't be that bad because if your kid was going to the teacher that started up her shop just down the street, and it's going to be easy walk, and the other kids that are there don't bully him, and it's working out great. But it turns out that they're just not doing any teaching.
Right.
It's very easy to say, all right, my money is no longer going to that place. It's going to the other lady that started one on the other side of the street. Actually doing all this stuff, and it would be the free market just instantly.
Right.
Like the education quality would just
and
right up the chart.
It's crazy because you talked about like administration cost. How the hell does it cost that much anyways when teachers are barely able to make over $50,000 a year?
$15,000 per student, and that teacher's getting $50K with 30 kids in the class.
God, that makes no sense to me.
Well, they got
Oh my gosh. Whole bunch of foo-foo.
And there's so many people at the top. There's just the administration offices. You just walk down it and it's row after row, counselor. What are the look at flags everywhere.
Goodness. So it is. We are up on 2 hours here. I do. Yeah. We. This is a very long episode. This is one of our
I
longest.
do need to do a plug for my website.
Yeah,
SteveHarveyVirginia.com.
I love it.
You can maybe pull it up. So
pull that up, Stu.
I am now. I was going to run for office this year. That was my website when I was running for office. SteveHarveyVirginia.com. It is now just a landing page for my email address. What?
No, HRVEY. You'll get it spelled right sooner or later.
So I've been asked by local conservative groups and folks to focus my intentions, if I'm not running, on election integrity. So we know that there's an awful lot of ballot harvesting going on in Virginia. Ballot harvesting is legal in the state of Virginia. You are allowed to ballot harvest. However, there are rules. and there is definitely a whole lot of cheating going on. Yep, that's it. So, yeah, if anybody is living in the Central Virginia area, particularly Albemarle County and the surrounding counties, reach out to me if you do have any evidence of fraud, waste, use within the election system. If you know that people are doing strong arming people in nursing homes, or just applying for ballots and they're not supposed to, or there's a million things you can do to fraud the Virginia election system. Maybe I should come back on in a couple weeks, actually, all that, because it's an hour-long conversation.
I would love that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, if you live in these areas, or even if you live in another area, I've got a lot of contacts across the state of Virginia. If you find something that's illicit going on in your area, shoot me an email and I'll try to connect you to the right people. If I do end up getting evidence of this, I will be promoting it. I am looking for donations to put up reward signs within the more suspected areas of Charlottesville, including the old age homes, nursing homes, stuff like that, where we know that they're registering tons of people to vote and we don't know exactly how those ballots are getting filled out. So if you have any kind of evidence about that stuff and you'd like to share it to help fix these problems, let me know and I'll do everything I can to get the word out.
Sounds good. So that's steveharveyvirginia.com.
Yep.
But all right, gentlemen. Well, this has been awesome. Go ahead, Nave.
I have one last thing. So before we do wrap it up, I have one last question, and I just want to see your thought process on this, because we've tangled with this discussion once or twice. How do you get money out of politics? I expected that.
That's not really a thing.
I didn't think so.
The people that got elected with money that was given to them. Right?
Do you ever?
The people that are elected are the ones that would have to change that rule about the money that they got.
Which they will not.
So you tell me how you fix it.
Fair enough.
Yeah. It's the same reason. It's the same reason why we don't audit our election system.
Right.
Because the person that got elected with that election system.
Right.
So who's gonna audit it?
Who's gonna audit
I just
that?
won, and so I'm gonna dig through these numbers and make sure we get every fake voter out. Yeah. Come on, like that is a big flaw, and
Fair
that's
enough.
why the Constitution of Virginia maybe should have had more protection as far as voter laws. That there should have been identification representative. I mean, it's tough though. It goes back to Jefferson. They didn't have IDs, you know. So I mean, we got to get voter ID back, but that's going to require a change in the House of Delegates in the state of Virginia, which is very long shot. They just redistricted everything, much to the advantage of the DP. Plus, Virginia has the worst election system, or maybe second worst. We're really, really bad. I'll go more into it if we do another one of these, but
love to. Just
so everyone knows, in the state of Virginia, you can put on a mask. You can put on a mask on election day. You can walk into a polling location. You can say, I don't have ID. I'd like to register. They will hand you a piece of paper and you write down whatever name comes into your imagination, whatever random digits you think of for a social security number. You do need to know the address that's in that locality. Otherwise, you can't vote there. So just ABC Apple Tree Court. That is in your locality. You write that down. My name is John Smith. Here's security number. I just popped it in my head. And they will check just the social security number to see if it matches somebody in the Virginia voter database, which represents maybe 8% of the social security. You got a darn good chance of not rolling a 1 out of 12, right?
Yeah.
And even if they do, they'll say, hey, that social is actually, oh, sorry, that was supposed to.
Oops.
And that's it. And now you're voting. Next thing they do after you fill that out, they hand you a ballot. So you can write any name, any number except for some, which they'll then hand back to you for a second try, and an address in that locality, and you can now vote. You walk out to your car, you change your mask, you walk back in.
Wow.
What's to stop you?
Nothing.
Nothing. The only thing that might stop you is an election poll watcher who recognizes beneath the mask who you are.
Right.
But if you change your hat and your mask, are they going to recognize you?
Nope.
what they meant.
Yeah.
No,
So give
no
me
chance.
50 hats, give me 50 masks, and give me 50 voting locations in the Albemarle County area.
And then somebody pays you $500 to do it for the
Or
day.
you just care.
Or you just,
or
yeah.
you're just an activist.
Or you just, yeah.
All right, now I have a question. Do you know how many people voted on election day, registered just before they voted, with no verification of who they are whatsoever?
I do not.
In Albemarle County alone, 930 people did that.
That's just Albemarle
Just
County.
Albemarle County. 980 people did it in Charlottesville. And one of the political candidates was bragging about it the whole day. We are up to 630 same-day registration voters, completely rife for fraud, waste, and abuse. Right?
Wow.
Just boosting it. In a college town, what are they going to lose? There's nobody there to catch you.
There's nobody there
There's
to care.
no sheriff. Nobody cares. You walk in, you say, yeah, I'm going to UVA. I want to vote. And they go, great.
Enjoy.
Yes.
Have fun.
Come back again.
Come back again with
Yeah.
another mask.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what we have here in Virginia. We got to fix that.
Wow.
Like,
we do.
seriously need to fix that. And I just have my doubts we're going to be able to, because we've got another election coming up, and the House of Delegates is up for vote, and the voting system is exactly how I explained it. And my friends, the more libertarian, conservative type people, are not going to be putting on masks and hats. It's just not our brand.
Not what I do either. Steve, thank you so much. Can't thank you enough for coming on to the show. That was a fantastic episode. Do want to touch up on Manny's last point there. He said, but Top Gun was really good. Who didn't love Top Gun? Who didn't love Top Gun?
That's why I became a helicopter. They wouldn't let me fly jets, and I said, that looks even cooler.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, what's up?
All right. So here's how I feel.
You want to know about Goku?
Yeah.
My children call me Daddy Gohan. That's why I wore this shirt. This is representing the Harvey boys and the Harvey girls. I got 4 of them.
Here's how I feel on election day. I go to the polls and vote, but I'm never excited about who I'm voting for. So I want to ask you, just real quick, how can we get better quality candidates? Because I feel like a lot of people in this country, they feel the same way. They're just like, well, yeah, I'll vote for, the lesser of two evils, or however you want to say it. They're just like, yeah, whatever, I'll vote for
What would
him.
excite you about a candidate?
Ooh,
That is
good
a good question. I don't know.
If you
Probably
can't think of what would excite you, then I can't give you an answer. Sorry.
true.
But I could say this. It starts with you. It starts with you going to some of the meetings. Every area has meetings for both parties, and you can walk up. They usually advertise them in the newspaper when they're going to have a mass meeting, and get involved. And it's as easy as that. There's no entrance fee. Usually like $5 to become a party member, but that's not going to stop you if it's your dream of changing the back to the way you want it. Really back to the way you want it.
I guess I just want somebody that's authentic, and I feel like a lot of these people are just playing politics and their
You would've
career.
really liked Rob Bell. I mean, he's still alive. Sorry, Rob.
Sorry, Rob.
He's still in office.
He was a great man.
Yeah, well, he just had
Still
his.
serving.
We just did these big parties for him because he decided not to run again. So I don't know. Rob's the man. You're still alive.
Yeah, I guess even just touching up on Steve's question, it's like vote your conscience, right? Learn about who that individual is,
Yeah,
what
but he's
they
talking
care
about being
and-
excited for the candidate. He's
Yeah.
not seeing exciting candidates, and that tells me that you got to get involved and you got to start trying to find people that do excite you and convince them to run.
Right.
Like, it's on us. We're lucky to have a system where you can just do that. You can just be like, I don't like the people that are running.
I'm
just gonna go find somebody that I do like and convince them to go run.
Right.
And I've convinced many people to run for office. If you sit down with them, you talk. Like most people are passionate about something and usually unhappy about many things.
Yeah.
And if you tap into those things and you explain how they could fix some of those, you can generate somebody that's interested in fixing problems.
Yeah.
And that's what I spent the last year doing, finding people to like local stuff, like school board, board of supervisors, etc. I mean, that's where most of your regulation comes from.
Right.
You know, the vast majority of stuff is happening at a local and state level. The federal government is in deadlock. They're both just trying to spend you out of existence. But at the state and local level, these people are touchable. Like, they're only representing maybe 17,000 people.
Right.
It's not that hard to get on their phone.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to get on their email.
And I guess for most people, it would really just be understanding how to fundraise, how to gain those funds to be able to become that political candidate, to be able to advertise and get your name out there, right? And a lot of people don't understand that stuff. So I would say, you know, yeah, like you said, find somebody, convince them to run, and then help them through that journey. They need help. People can't do it by yourself. It takes a village. It takes a team, and that's you know, it's hard for people to just figure it out by themselves.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
SteveHarveyVirginia.com. Make sure you all visit that. For everybody who has been here tonight, Manuel, thank you for the participation. Wendy, thank you for commenting as well. To everyone, we had a solid amount of viewers tonight. We had everybody kind of just watching, not as much contribution, but more people watching. So really appreciate you all there. If you haven't already, like, comment, share, follow. Please make sure you all do that. We really appreciate any kind of support that we can get for this podcast. Really just pushing our name out there is what we want. We want to be able to share our stories with everyone, between all the guests that we have, between us three as well, running this on a weekly basis. So yeah, please make sure you all do that. Real quick, want to say thank you to all first responders, firefighters, EMT, you know, police, anybody who serves our country, military, former military. Thank you all for what you do. You serve the public, you know, and we can't thank you enough. That would also include nurses, doctors, surgeons, all of you all in the healthcare field as well. So thank you all for what you do. You know, just not enough appreciation going out for things of that nature. I see we do have
Old Faithful.
Dean.
If
Dean.
it ain't Old Faithful out here, I was wondering where you were at.
He said, been watching on YouTube, but wanted to say really enjoyed the podcast. Thank you, Dean. Appreciate you jumping on. I know you're probably a busy man, so can't thank you enough for jumping on tonight. And again, just reiterate, thank you to all those who serve our country. So with that being said, this was a fantastic episode. Loved having you out, Steve. Please, again, make sure you all share this, because here at The Fact Is, we believe that we have more in common than what we don't. We just got to talk, and we got to be able to come to a common ground. And, you know, I think we all want the same things. It's just a matter of getting there. So this was the 120th episode of The Fact Is. Stuart, thank you for what you do back there behind the scenes. Ryan, we were your hosts, Nate Moses, Ryan Mays. Thank you so much. Steve, can't thank you enough for coming on to the show. We look forward to having you on again. And any last remarks, gentlemen? Merry Christmas.
That's all, folks.
Thank you all. See you all for episode 121 next week, Wednesday, 8 p.m. See y'all then.